especially during the New Year's, we travel all over from Sera Monastery down to Lhasa City to see all the beautiful peasantry and the dances and the ancient rituals where they fire arrows and musket guns. It's wonderful. After you see from the side of Tibet and how desolate, how medieval that we lived, and until Chinese occupation, we were basically in a cocoon. Practically, I can say the 20th century bypassed Tibet totally. It is partly our own fault. The Chinese occupation took place because we felt that we were untouchable because of the lofty mountains, because we were spiritually tuned to the nature. We never felt that there'll be any country or anybody come to Tibet to disseminate the Tibet what it was. Of course, these things took place, and the average Tibetan didn't know. The government, the officials, of course, knew the imminent Chinese invasion. And of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as a youngster at those days, of a 13 to 14-year-old, tried his level best to change the actual system in Tibet so that we can have a sort of modernized, or let the outside world know what Tibet is all about, by sending a number of students to rugby school for education, by sending delegation to India, Nepal, Burma, all these areas to do. But at the end of the day, I think that the religious one, anybody gets opportunity, have a look at the 17-point agreement, which is on the website of Friends of Tibet, which explains what the 17-point agreement is. Actually, what the Dalai Lama asking today with China is exactly ratification of that treaty. Yet China simply refused to acknowledge that, even though it was their decision and their actually instruction and their power to make us sign that treaty. And the treaty was signed in 1951, not by the Tibetan government, by the delegations that went to Peking to discuss this issue. And their instruction was from the government is to go to China, have a look at the treaty, discuss the issue, and then bring the treaty back to Lhasa, and we will discuss the treaty and we will check, what is for us and what is for them, and within that area we'll work. However, before the delegation left China, the Chinese government says you have to sign this treaty. Without signing this treaty, we're going to send troops into Lhasa. You have to remember, in 1951, there's no roadable roads into Tibet, so they just cannot walk in. So it took a long time to get to Lhasa. As Lowell Thomas says, it took them 6 months to get to Lhasa. Similar to from China itself, get into Lhasa, it will be no roadable roads, so therefore they cannot take heavy machineries or anything like that. So invasion of Lhasa was unheard of. Therefore, these delegations signed the treaty under their own title. In other words, if I'm a governor of Amdo, I sign my name, Tuten Kesang, governor Amdo, and blah, 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 blah. But the Chinese are so crafty. They had already duplicated the Tibetan government's official seal. Soon as those signature was written on the paper, stamp went on, which government official stamp, would you believe, which is not, which is a duplicate copy of it. And they announced to the world that Tibet was liberated. Well, Tibet is liberated from whom? As Lowell Thomas tell you, there's two foreigners. Well, during the time of the actual occupation, actually there was Henry Herrera and Al Schneider. If you see 7 years in Tibet, those are the two foreigners that actually lived in Tibet. And what imperial is he talking about? Well, who are you liberating Tibet from? If Tibet, as Chinese history call it, has always been part of China, then what's the point of liberation? What's the point of signing a treaty? So what has happened is history. As the Dalai Lama always pointing out to people, I am a simple Buddhist monk. I cannot tell lies. Tibet for 2,000 years was an independent nation. However, today's Tibet is part of China through occupation. Now that is a reality. That's what he says. And that is for us, we accept that. Tibet is part of China today through occupation. But how many governments in the world recognize Tibet as an occupied country? Nobody. You know why? United States sold us out. In 1970, when Henry Kissinger, Richard Nixon went to China, they deal with Mao Zedong's gang, said, you come do business with us, and in proviso that you recognize Tibet as an integral part of China, you must keep China. The Chinese will point out to you historical data. If you look back far enough histories, everybody has conquered somebody, somewhere, sometime. History is something that we have, it's a past, has happened. We should learn from history. If you read today's China's history, China will tell you the Opium War was so devastating. How the Japanese attack on Nanking, so devastating. They really ruined us. But they have not learned the lesson from those war. What they're doing in Tibet today, exactly what has happened to the China during the time. And people today tell us, oh, China is so powerful, oh, we cannot do anything to China because she's mighty and sooner or later China is going to be the number one in the world. Why? We are making them into number one. Nobody else. China itself cannot survive number one because reason I'll tell you why. Everybody busy trading with China. Everybody investing in China. Everybody shipping their factory in China. China has become the world manufacturing place. If something happens in China today, the whole world economy will collapse. If you look into New Zealand, warehouse, pharma, Dika, bond and bond, will shut down because there will be nothing in the shop to sell. Because if you touch anything that comes from China. So I think our own way of doing things, I think we are making China into a powerful nation. If Chinese know how to make money, why should they make money? They want for themselves. The military. You want hardware, you want military goods? Get into business. Get into business, make money. And that's how exactly happened. Today, most of the factories in China, somewhere along the line, it's owned by the military. Every dollar they make, 50 cents go to military hardware. For what purpose? When we talk about peace, there will be no peace when you start spending money in military-wise. And we have to learn that. Peace only comes through people talking to each other, not through guns. So therefore, for Tibet, I think last 30 odd years, we have been very, very, I think the support for Tibet issue is one of the most biggest organizations in the world. There is not a country anywhere in that world, practically, even in the communist countries, we have Tibet support movement working for Tibet, trying to do something for Tibet. But if you go into the political arena, it's zero because of the Chinese government stand on issue. Not only that, they are one of the permanent members of the United Nations. They have signed a number of treaties ratifying the human rights issue. But do they keep that treaty? No. But nobody is prepared to do anything about it. Until such time they can do these things, nothing will change for China. And for Tibetans, all we want is to live in peace. After all, as a Tibetan religious way of thinking, that we are born on this earth to be happy people. Happiness is what we're looking for. And therefore, as His Holiness said, when he last New Zealand in 2002, he told us that please try and promote my non-violence stance in the world about Tibet issue. He says, if my non-violent issue fails, the world will look at Tibet as an example. What is non-violence? Where did Tibet get with non-violence? The alternative is unthinkable. Therefore, please try and do something. So what you saw today here is what Tibet was. I mean, you look at the Potala Palace. It stands out giant. This is nothing but that stands out from miles. You go to Lhasa today, that becomes insignificant building because they have deliberately built skyscrapers everywhere, Chinese-looking things. So that becomes. So Tibet is a country. National flag is sitting there. Everybody knows it. But we cannot fly that flag anywhere inside Tibet. The moment you fly that flag, or even wear this T-shirt I'm wearing, you'll be jailed for 15 years for just for doing that. The world knows it, but nobody's prepared to push the button. And I think the important thing for us, in New Zealand especially, because we got one government system, is pushed our government into recognizing Tibet as an occupied country. That will put a question mark on Chinese sovereignty. So if you can do anything, if you read any articles on Tibet, if you see some stories on Tibet, don't feel sorry about it. Because the feeling sorry and do nothing gets nowhere. Do something about it. Even if you send one paragraph editorial letter to the Herald or anybody, or pick up your telephone. Radio Talk Back is a great media for people to talk. And the producers and the program controllers, they are very aware of Tibet issue, because every time I ring, there is no argument from them, because we always say Tibet cause is just cause. At the end of the day, it might take time, but the winner will always be Tibet.